Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Saturday to everybody. Today I'm going to continue doing my college football fantasy 2018 draft videos. I've done the ACC, I've done the SEC, and today I'm going to dive into the Big Ten a little bit. For anybody who's not familiar with the way I'm doing this, I'm doing it just like a daily fantasy draft board that you would do on DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever. 9 players. I'm picking a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a defensive end, a linebacker, and a defensive back, either a cornerback or a safety. So let's just get right into it. And notice when looking into the Big Ten is some positions were very easy to pick, others very difficult. And you see that with the other conferences too. For instance, the SEC is loaded with, defensive end talent, running back talent. The ACC was loaded with wide receiver talent, also some defensive end talent and running back talent. So some of these positions are just easier to pick than others, okay? And like I've said before, you may have a different board than I have. That's fine. When you're picking just a few players out of an entire conference, there is no right or wrong answer here. So let's start with quarterback. To me, this was easy. It was easy for one reason. I think that Trace McSorley out of Penn State is the best returning quarterback in the Big Ten this year. You can make an argument for some other players. So you're going to have Hunter Johnson's going to be at Northwestern, but he hasn't been a starter yet. So we don't know what we're going to get from him. Just because he was a 5-star and played at Clemson does not mean that he's just all of a sudden going to go into the Big Ten and light it up. Even though I think he's a great quarterback, we don't know yet. Shea Patterson at Michigan. We know he's a good quarterback because we saw what he was doing at Ole Miss. But he hasn't played in the Big Ten yet. I do think he's going to be really good. I think he's the best quarterback that Jim Harbaugh's had since he's been there. And that he's going to give them the best chance to finally maybe make a run at winning that division. But he's in a new system, new city, new school, the whole 9 yards. Trace McSorley played really, really great last year. I think he's really underrated as a quarterback. He does not have Barkley this year. We all know that. But quarterbacks get better year to year, not worse. And not to mention, I think that Penn State's offense outside of the running back position is going to get better this year than it was. So I really like Trace McSorley as a college quarterback. I don't know how he's going to translate to the NFL. It's really hard. He's one of these guys that's really hard to judge how they're going to translate to the NFL. But as a college quarterback, he's a good player. I really do like him. So I'm picking Trace McSorley out of Penn State. All right, 2 running backs. First one's no-brainer. He's the #1 Heisman candidate out of the Big Ten. Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin. No need to go into stats. I think he had almost 2,000 yards last year, like 1,900 yards. They have one of the best offensive lines in the country last year. They will again this year. The one thing that is a lot of people don't know about Jonathan Taylor is that he was a 3-star player. We put a lot of emphasis on 4 stars, 5 stars. And I mean, there's a reason for that. I mean, if you're sitting here saying that you don't want your school to recruit 4- and 5-star players, then you're lying. But the reality with this guy is he's a 3-star, and he's one of these 3-stars like you see come along every once in a while, who lights the world on fire. A diamond in the rough, if you will. I think that he has a very good shot at being invited to New York next year as a Heisman candidate. I think Bryce Love's going to win the Heisman, but who knows? I wouldn't be shocked if this guy did, because Wisconsin plays in a weak division in the Big Ten, the weaker of the 2 divisions in the Big Ten, and he's a really good player, and he has a really good offensive line. So all those things put together puts him in the stratosphere as far as the potential that he could have this year. So first one, Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin. Next on the list, this should be no shock to people either. Now, the Big Ten has a lot of really good running backs. I did notice that out of researching these teams. Some teams have several really good running backs, like Ohio State. J.K. Dobbins, Ohio State. J.K. Dobbins last year had 1,400 yards, 7.2 yards per carry, which is nothing to sneeze at. They also have another really good running back. So the fact that he was really splitting carries with another running back last year and still had 1,400 yards and 7.2 yards per carry. Very impressive. Ohio State has more talent out of the entire Big Ten. Ohio State has more talent, and it's not even close, than the next most talented school. So when you have that, and you have a guy like J.K. Dobbins, you're setting yourself up for success and putting up big stats and a lot of numbers. So I think he'll have more than 1,400 yards. He may push the 2,000 yard limit this year at Ohio State. So I really like J.K. Dobbins at Ohio State. Next, 3 wide receivers. Now this is what I was talking about earlier, talking about some positions are easier to pick, some are harder to pick. I got to be honest with you here, guys. The wide receiver talent in the Big Ten is their biggest deficiency. A lot of schools have great offensive lines. A lot of schools have great running backs. A lot of schools have great defensive backs. A lot of schools have great defensive lines. Wide receiver is their Achilles heel in the Big Ten. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these guys. You can do your own research. The stats for the returning wide receivers, I'm not talking about last year, but guys are going to be playing this year are not very impressive. I mean, they're not bad, but compared to other conferences, almost every other conference, really, they're not in the stratosphere. So I'm just going to run through these. And, you know, I realize if you're a fan of one of these teams, you're probably going to come on here and tell me, well, you didn't think about this guy and give me injury excuses and all that. I don't want to hear it. Please, just don't. Just don't. So first I'm going to say Nebraska, wide receiver Stanley Morgan Jr. Last year he had 986 yards, 10 touchdowns, which is really good. And he's probably going to be the best returning receiver in the Big Ten this year. Next would be out of Michigan State, Felton Davis III. He had 776 yards last year and 9 touchdowns. Really good. But not, you know, that's not Heisman material. I mean, there's probably 10 receivers in the Big 12 better than any of these 3 wide receivers. That's just a fact. I mean, I'm sorry, it just is. Next would be Juwan Johnson out of Penn State. He's not necessarily a stat guy. 701 yards last year, but only 1 touchdown. Now, the reason I put him ahead of some of the other guys that could have been in this spot is because he has Trace McSorley throwing him the ball. And that's really the only reason. So, is he going to be an All-American first team receiver? Maybe. I don't know. But the receiver core in the Big Ten is really lackluster this year. You're going to see a lot of running the ball, which is what they do normally anyways. All right, on to the next one. Defensive end. This is not going to be a shock to anybody. If anybody disagrees with this, I don't know what kind of football you're watching. Now, I'm not saying there's not other great defensive ends in the Big Ten. There's a lot of them. Michigan has some. Michigan State, Iowa, Nebraska. There's a bunch of teams with really, 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 really good defensive ends. This guy's great, though. He will be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. And that's Nick Bosa out of Ohio State. Enough said. I'm not going to even go into Nick Bosa. If you don't know who Nick Bosa is, then I'm sorry. Joey Bosa's brother. All right. Next, linebacker. So this is one of the strong suits of the Big Ten. Lots of really good linebackers. You could really, there's probably about 7 or 8 guys that you could put in this one spot and draw them out of a hat, and you're going to be okay. I'm going with TJ Edwards out of Wisconsin. So last year he had 81 tackles. Did you hear what I just said? 81 tackles. Now, I'm not a math major, but that's a lot of tackles per game. The guy's a tackling machine. Only guy I could remember that had that many tackles in college was somebody like Luke Kuechly who is just a tackling machine. And that translates to the NFL very well too. You know, these guys, you know, they can cover, you know, they have good hands, they can intercept the ball. Tackling at the linebacker position in particular, that's what the linebacker's there to do. They need to be a tackling machine. And that's a big problem in some of these conferences like the Big 12 is tackling. So if I don't care if you have zero as a linebacker, if you have 0 interceptions and 0 sacks, 0, I want to see you tackle. That's what you're there for. Tackle, 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 tackle. This guy's a tackler. So TJ Edwards, Wisconsin. So last but not least, defensive back position. I'm going with a cornerback. And you may have noticed, and it wasn't by design, that I've gone through this whole list and haven't named one single Michigan player. I named a Michigan State player, but not a Michigan player. And you'd say, how can you do that when Michigan has a top 5 defense in the country? Well, I'm going to tickle your ass with a feather right now. Lavert Hill, out of Michigan, cornerback, is, in every publication that I've read, the #1 defensive back in the Big Ten, and it's not even close. So, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I know every single defensive back player in the Big Ten, and I can argue with you back and forth about who's better. But when you start researching these guys, you'll see on different publications, one publication may say this guy's the best linebacker, another may say this one's the best linebacker from a different team. When I researched this guy, it was across the board: Fox, ESPN, 24/7 Sports, Athlon Sports, Joe Blow and his Basement Sports. Every single one of them said that this is the best defensive back in the Big Ten this year. Nobody said any different. So if I see that, then my radar goes up. So I'm not going to be the idiot that disagrees with that. And maybe you will be the idiot that disagrees with that. And I love idiots disagreeing with me. So anyway, that's my pick for the Big Ten, or my picks for the Big Ten. If you're a Big Ten fan out there, I know there's some on here. Whether you're a Michigan State, Ohio, I know I have some Iowa fans on here. I know I have some Wisconsin fans on here. I would love to hear some of your input on this and tell me where you disagree or agree or disagree, or if you would switch some of the players that I have at these picks. So anyway, have a great day. Next time I was going to do the Big 12 today. I'm going to do that next time. And I'll let you know why I didn't do the Big 12 today. But anyway, I'll see you next time with the Big 12 fantasy draft video. Have a great day. Pigskin Pete checking out.